So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jared.
I'm Brandon.
And the forbidden door was slightly ajar last night for AEW Dynamite. We will talk that and so much more as another episode of the Heel to the Face podcast begins right now.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So we are on the road to Elimination Chamber, just about a week away, the final pay-per-view stop that we know of before WrestleMania in terms of WWE. Seems kind of strange to have Elimination Chamber coming up and then not have one of these other pay-per-views kind of shoehorned in there in the middle of March. A couple of years, they weren't even they were in there. They were like already scheduled, Fastlane, Roadblock, whatever have you. But I think the good news is this year, as of right now, it looks like we're going to have what we haven't had in a long time, and that's one of those long breaks between WrestleMania and the February pay-per-view. No 3 weeks away kind of thing.
Thank goodness, because we can't have these like 2-3 week deals. It's too tight. You got to have a little bit of space in between. And the nice thing is WrestleMania season is here. I liked what you did there on the road to everyone thinks WrestleMania. We got one more stop along the way.
It's funny that I say, road to Elimination Chamber, but it reminds me of when we had Elimination Chamber, but then we had this WWE special in 2016 called Roadblock. And that to me seems like would be a perfect pay-per-view. We had it one time as that WWE special, like a couple weeks before WrestleMania, a WWE Network special that had I think the main event was Triple H versus Dean Ambrose for the title. And it was supposed to have Brock versus somebody, Wyatt. But, they had that, and then I think later down in that year, they actually had it as a pay-per-view. But what I loved about that graphic is it was like the perfect name for a pay-per-view in that spot. Because it's Roadblock. I mean, we're on the road to WrestleMania. It's essentially like...
It's like, nope, you got to stop. You got to stop here before you get to Mania.
Yes, and I used to like the graphic that they did, because for the pay-per-view, when it was on the road to WrestleMania, it was like 3 or 4 weeks before WrestleMania, when it was just like a Saturday night network special. And they would show the WrestleMania logo, and then they would be like driving a car, and then all of a sudden it would be like a chop Roadblock, and then it put for the graphics, like it's going to be Dean Ambrose, Triple H, the championship's on the line, and then it would just like when they do those moving graphics and they advertise the card, it would have the WrestleMania logo, and they would just like swipe in front of it and be like Dean Ambrose, Triple H, Roadblock, meaning essentially because that's what Elimination Chamber is. We're on the road to WrestleMania, we got to stop, and then we're full steam ahead.
Fast forward to 2022. Creative couldn't be any worse, I guess. I mean, look what's going on. I mean, even Big E is feeling the wrath of everything going on. Like Big E now is back as a tag team specialist with Kofi these days. Like, what is going on here? And Drew McIntyre, like he's in a program with Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss.
Yeah,
what the hell's going on here?
I'm fine with that for now because Elimination Chamber's coming up and that's not WrestleMania. So I hope they figure that out, and I hope that he has a good opponent come WrestleMania.
But what about Big E?
I mean,
what's going on there?
I mean, well, I guess my thing is, what's up with Kofi Kingston? I mean, would you say the same for him when he lost to Brock Lesnar and hasn't been in the main event scene since?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that's the thing. They both had. It's crazy because Kofi had the same issue where he had a nice run, the Kofi Mania deal, and then he fell out of the main scene, so to speak. And then Big E, and here's the thing, the tough part about Big E, the whole COVID situation with Roman really changed that, because I think Big E was going to be a champion probably at least for a couple more months. That's what I thought. And then WWE said, you know what, he's expendable. In this case, we can have him drop the belt. We're definitely not letting Roman drop the belt. And then Brock Lesnar gets the title.
I don't even know, because remember we heard the rumors about Seth Rollins potentially taking it back at day one. There was him and there was Kevin Owens.
That's also true. But here's the thing. The thing with Big E is, why put the belt on him if you're just going to put him back as a mid-card tag specialist now? Like, what was the point of that? To me, it's the problem with WWE is they don't want to build new stars. They just want to recycle the old same talents, the Goldbergs, the Brock Lesnars, and now Lita's in the picture. Why can't we establish new stars? Look what AEW is doing. They're establishing new stars all the time. Yes, they brought in Keith Lee this week, which is a great debut. You also have Jon Moxley, another established star. But look at the other guys. MJF, that's homegrown. Jungle Boy, that's homegrown. So AEW is homegrown. And I mean, as much as she's a very raw talent, I think Jade Cargill has got a lot of potential. I think that match this past week was not really a good match, but I think the best thing for Jade Cargill is she needs to be wrestling somebody like a Serena Deeb, where Serena Deeb can call the match. Because Jade Cargill is very, I would say, very green. She's got the look, she's got the talent. They just got to put it together. And I think Serena Deeb, with what she's been doing with the whole 5-minute thing that she was talking about this week, I mean, she would be a perfect fit, but maybe they're saving that for a later date. So, I mean, AEW is building stars, new stars, creating new stars. WWE just kind of going back to the mill. Like this past week, we saw Goldberg.
Well, it seems like, they go back to the mill come WrestleMania season. That seems to be a constant. It's the same issue we talked about with the Women's Royal Rumble, and that, how long can you do this? I'll be honest with you. I thought many years ago, because I think they're on like year 5 of this Saudi Arabia deal. It's crazy how quick that went through. I think it started in 2018. So you got 2018, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, so 2018 seems only like it was 2 years ago, but in reality, this is year 5 of that deal.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think because it is 2022. And, I feel like when they started doing this with the Brocks, the Undertakers, the Triple H's, you're like, how often can they have these part-timers? Because it's a 10-year deal. I mean, is Goldberg and Brock Lesnar still going to be around? And little you know, we're halfway through the deal, and they're still bringing out these big names for these Saudi Arabia shows. They're still there. I mean, Undertaker isn't for now. Who knows? Maybe he'll be back. But
well, there's a lot of speculation at Rumble. It was just Michelle McCool was being supported by her husband. She wore a nice, she wore her attire that had the Taker. And
that's that is a little ridiculous. He can't now attend a WWE event without you thinking he's going to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's like you guys do realize his wife was going to be in the Rumble, so it's like that whole speculation, like, oh, he's in. Like, I think he's done wrestling at this point. I think at this point it's been far enough removed since his last appearance wrestling wise. I think he's done. I think you're going to see him pop up from time to time. I was also kind of surprised, not to go back to Rumble, but I was kind of surprised we didn't see Kane. Usually Kane does his he'll do like the once in a blue moon appearance at the Rumble. He's been in the Rumble more than anybody. So, but overall, I think I got to just to go back to the WWE building stars. That's just the issue where it is these days. It's just like they're not building new talent. And I mean, NXT 2.0, sure, it's okay, but they should have just left it as the OG black and gold. That's just me.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, and they're obviously not getting the benefit of that of NXT is not doing what they thought it would do. I don't know what they thought it would do. They're just
here's the thing. Here I'm not to cut you off. Here's the thing. NXT OG would have had at least 1 or 2 superstars, whether it was the men's Rumble or the women's Rumble. They would have been somebody would have been in each. To have no NXT 2.0 superstars in either Rumble tells me all I need to know about the NXT 2.0.
And, it doesn't tell you what you need to know about NXT 2.0. It needs to tell you what they're doing about NXT 2.0. Because, again, this isn't an organic thing. This is a choice. They are making the choice to make these products the way that they are. They're making a choice.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, there's nothing wrong with the NXT 2.0 talent. It's talent that could come up. The problem is what they're doing with the talent. They have all this talent. People like this talent. And then for some reason, they treat them so much differently when they get on the main roster, when they're a part of Raw and SmackDown. I don't know why they do it.
Hey,
it's not the fan of the fans loved Shinsuke. The fans love Aleister Black. They loved Keith Lee. They loved all these people. I remember at the Royal Rumble, I think 2 years ago, I was there when Keith Lee and Brock Lesnar had like a stare down. People were clamoring.
They wanted it
for that match when he came out from NXT the night before to be a part of the Royal Rumble. So it's not
So let me ask you this then.
The athlete's fault, and it's not the fans' fault. WWE is specifically saying that's great that you want that, but this is what we're doing with them.
Can you blame Tommaso Ciampa from going to the main roster and just sticking it in NXT?
I can't blame anybody. I can't blame.
Look at Dolph Ziggler.
I can't blame Dolph Ziggler. I think if you have an opportunity like Dolph Ziggler, if you are told you have an opportunity to go to NXT, I think that's the new call up. I think if you go into a Raw and SmackDown locker room and you say, who wants to go to NXT to start a feud with the champion or somebody else, I'm raising my hand. Unless I'm Roman Reigns, I'm raising my hand.
Well, unless it's stale. Unless you're like Riddle or Randy Orton. I mean, right? I mean, Riddle has done it, but that's a bad example. But if you're not stale, like you're not getting any of that TV time, and you get an opportunity to maybe get yourself some spotlight or some airtime on NXT, absolutely you do it. And Dolph Ziggler and NXT. When I heard that was happening, I was like, cool, I like it. I mean, Dolph Ziggler in NXT, I think, that could give not only NXT a little bit of rub, but I think it could help Dolph Ziggler.
If I was Shinsuke right now, I'd want to go back there.
Honestly, a lot of these superstars could do it. I mean, Damian Priest has done okay, minus the defeat this past week against. I mean, it was AJ Styles, so it wasn't that bad of a defeat. He still looked fine, but I mean, Damian Priest, he's been pretty good since his call up from NXT. He's been there. But he also has the size that Vince is looking for. He's not a small man, so it's not like he's built like Roderick Strong, so to speak. So I think more times than not, when you get called up from NXT to the main roster, you kind of get stagnated, which is why you see the Keith Lees of the world who just debuted in AEW where they are. Because I'm going to be honest with you. If Keith Lee never got called up or said, hey, I don't want to get called up, and he wanted to stay in NXT, he's not at AEW last night. Simple as that. Because he was getting plenty of time on NXT programming. He was getting enough work where that was perfectly fine. And that's the thing. You got Ciampa, you got Gargano, who have essentially said, no, I don't want to go up to the main roster. And that's been out there. They showed up at a couple backstage things, but that was it. And they both did not want to go to the main roster because they saw what would happen.
And here's the thing too. There's lots of reasons why you wouldn't want to go to the main roster. The WWE doesn't incentivize wanting to go to the main roster. If you're at NXT, right now you don't have to travel. They have the shows right from Florida where you live, so you can drive to work once a week or whatever, every day to practice or whatever.
Yeah, the center.
You don't have to travel the country if you don't want to. You can just go to the performance center and wrestle there. You probably get a little bit of a pay cut versus the main roster people, but we all learned about the different clause, the no compete clause. I mean, look at Keith Lee. He's making out because of things like that.
Well, here's the other thing too. The Dolph Zigglers of the world, I mean, they're not getting their pay cut. I mean, he's signed a big contract. Dolph Ziggler is one of the higher paid talents in WWE, to be honest with you. So I don't see him taking a pay cut to go down NXT, but I get what
I'm
you're
just saying for like the NXT talent in general, and I didn't mean Keith Lee because he was called up to the main roster, so he had the traditional length. But I'm thinking of people like Adam Cole.
Aleister Black had that where they screwed up the paperwork and he was gone.
He got to keep the 30 days.
Yeah.
But so if you stay in NXT, if you're Tommaso Ciampa and you don't call up, you get 30 days in case they release you, so you can go to AEW and make some money. You have the work right down the street from your house. And you have a little bit better writing, and you're not going to get ruined.
I would say a little bit better writing.
I say a little bit better. I mean, it was really better years ago, but now it's just a little bit better.
Yeah, it's slightly better at best. I mean, if H was still there, if you had Regal still there, I think things would be better. But yes, I think at this point, anything is better than being on the main roster in WWE.
And unless
you're like Roman Reigns.
You talk about Triple H. I mean, that's crazy to think that he was one of the speculated people that could have possibly been at AEW Dynamite, opening the forbidden door. I don't see that just yet. And I think if it was Triple H showing up in AEW, there's a few different caveats. One, regardless of his involvement, he is still married to Stephanie McMahon. So even if he doesn't work for WWE anymore or has a falling out, he is still essentially a McMahon. And second off,
imagine that dinner table talk.
They wouldn't have that on a Dynamite. They would save that for. I mean, Triple H is not Keith Lee. No offense.
It's going to be a pay-per-view.
Triple H.
What they would do.
I mean, if he and especially if he came in, let's say he's got the active roster, he wants to participate again. I mean, he's going right to championship shots right there.
So what? I mean,
he's going right to the main events.
I mean, let me ask you this: What would I would want to be a fly on the wall in this dream
and it
scenario.
Can't be money because he's got enough of that.
Yeah, he's got enough money. But think of this dream scenario. We're just kind of fantasy booking this. Triple H goes to AEW. Obviously, he's married to Steph. Mm-hmm. Imagine those dinner time talks where like he's at dinner with not only his wife and kids, with Vince. Imagine that he's working for AEW and at the dinner table with the chairman of WWE. I can only imagine what those conversations would be, but that's obviously fantasy booking. I don't see that happening.
But the Triple H or anybody's credit who does this is on Vince. Vince is, what's the thing? He has 100% control. He can kill AEW any day he wants. And I don't mean because he's got the money so he can put on bigger, grander shows. I mean, he can put on a show that is better than AEW or equivalent of AEW. He chooses not to. He chooses to go this route that he follows everything Nick Khan says.
Because he's stubborn.
He follows everything that the stockholders, and I understand to a degree you can't have, like, let's say some of the death matches we just saw on AEW, a great match between Lance Archer and Hangman Page to main event AEW Dynamite this past week. But I mean, he has the option to do things. He was there during the Attitude Era, and I know we're not going to go back to that exactly, but he knows how to write good wrestling, and he was there for it. He could make it again. He makes good stars. All these stars we love in AEW, he had Keith Lee, CM Punk, John Moxley,
Andrade,
Malachi Black. He had all these people, and we liked them all in WWE. They chose to screw it all up.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the problem that I'm seeing is you're right. Nick Khan is pretty much pulling the strings, and Vince is kind of going along with. That's kind of my impression. I think that's obviously your impression of it. I just think what they're doing is just a bad business model from a programming perspective. You're right. Like I know what we've talked about, the money stuff, the stockholder stuff. From that perspective, they're probably kicking some ass in it. That's probably the honest truth on it. But when it comes to the TV product itself, I don't think it's that great, because I watched AEW from start to finish this week. Dynamite was fantastic. Mm-hmm. Every single segment of that show was fantastic. I got off the couch during the commercials. If I had to grab a drink or something, I was planning. I didn't even look at the phone, minus the quick text when Keith Lee debuted, as I accurately predicted. And
I'm not saying you were wrong. The Keith Lee thing was the safe bet. I just had an idea that it was going to be someone a little more salacious. And I'm saying Keith Lee is a better get than Mustafa Ali for sure. But Mustafa
100%.
Ali just checked all the boxes of that person whom he works for WWE, but he hasn't been seen on WWE TV in a little bit. He doesn't get along with WWE. He's blocking them on social media over here.
Well, Tony Khan had mentioned that they didn't lock up Switchblade until Sunday, so it was like the it was close to the 23rd hour.
So Switchblade Jay White was essentially what they meant by the Forbidden Door, because he's essentially an Impact talent right now, right?
Speaking of that, I got to cut you off real quick. That just sparked something, and I know we kind of talked about it via text, but I got to bring it up for the show for our listeners and our viewers. When I saw Switchblade do that segment in the backstage, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, so obviously he's not in the match. That there's a secret new addition to the roster. So, to me, the way they booked it in back-to-back segments, Tony Khan and company, they got their stuff together with that, because then you're like, oh, Switchblade he was out back with Adam Cole and the Bucks. So who's in this match then? Because then that's the Forbidden Door portion of it, because as soon as you had that part of it, you knew that was the Forbidden Door because of his ties and where he comes from.
And I don't think that's so much. And I like how Tony Khan said he's going to open the Forbidden Door and then close it. I hope that's not the case. I hope nobody closes it. Why would we ever want that to be closed? If we can keep working with people, if WWE can bring over somebody from Impact for WrestleMania, that would be great, or the future in general.
Yeah, you can't open and close. That part of it I don't like.
I will say, because AEW has had such a close relationship with Impact, they've been doing so much with Impact, and the fact that Jay White hasn't really been doing anything since he essentially went over to Impact, he just, made a debut? I mean, I don't know.
What's he really done?
Yeah, he hasn't really done anything.
But I also haven't watched a lot of Impact.
So I don't think him going over to AEW is like this shocker. Nothing's really too much of a shocker.
But it checked the box.
The box.
And that's why I was and then I knew right off the bat then, even
seeing him come over, though, was similar to seeing even the Good Brothers was more of a surprise, because at that time when the Good Brothers were coming over with the Kenny Omega thing, Impact, that was newer to that. But now that we've seen the Good Brothers come over and we've seen the other Impact talent come over.
Can I be honest?
I like Jay White a lot, for sure.
I watched two matches that could have arguably been pay-per-view matches on Dynamite this week. You had the bloodbath, the Texas death match.
Yes,
with Archer and our boy, what do we got there? Hangman Page,
the champion,
the champ. That was a great match.
Adam Cole coming out at the end to kind of tease a little feud between those two.
But that obviously was a good main event. You arguably could have had another main event, which was CM Punk and Moxley versus FTR. That was a fantastic tag team match. There were so many false finishes. There was some underhanded tactics by FTR that you thought, okay, they're getting the 1, 2, 3. Didn't turn out that way. That match, along with Hangman and Archer, those both, you could have had those on for pay-per-view, and I wouldn't have complained one bit. But you got it on free TV. AEW is doing the right things right now.
One way that you might be right, and it seemed like it was actual news, but you were kind of debating. One of the only places I saw that was kind of debating this of like if it was true or not. And it was one of the people who people thought might be coming through the forbidden door. But you, I think last week, were taking it with a grain of salt. And I thought it was fact. It was kind of weird we were having this debate because they said, well, it's kind of factual that this happened, regardless of how it happened. And you're like, no, and then you might be right in that maybe Shane McMahon and everyone saying that he had a falling out with WWE, maybe that never happened because of the fact that it looks like he's doing some work with WWE and still a part of the family. He was seen in a tweet collaborating with, I think, the owner of the Florida Panthers.
Yep.
And they were talking about great to work with WWE. So essentially he was there on behalf of WWE.
Yeah, it was like There was three big names: McMahon, the guy from the Florida Panthers, and there was somebody else. But they're all big time players. These guys are some big time names in the business world. I can't roll off their names off the top of my head. But when you got three guys like that, and then the one gentleman, I want to say he was the Panthers like co-owner or something.
Yes, was Panthers co-owner.
He was saying this is my
Shane
brother. Like I was like, wow, you get very close.
And I got to say one thing, whether he's got, I don't really understand Shane McMahon having a falling out or not having a falling out, because essentially regardless, as long as his last name is McMahon and the person at the top of WWE is also a McMahon, I mean, are you ever like under contract? Does Shane like actually like get a paycheck? Like,
I'm sure he gets paid out on things. I mean,
but it's not the same. It's like, it's like if your dad owns a Papa John's and you go in there and you walk in the back and you want to like grab a pizza, you don't have to, you're not like an official employee. If you go in the
back, you toss the dough, you throw the sauce on and throw the cheese, throw it in the oven and go.
Yeah, I mean, so like for him to participate in the Royal Rumble, it's not like they signed a contract or called him up real quick and we're like, hey, do you want to like? It's like he can just kind of show up and he's another Undertaker. If he's there in the back, that doesn't mean he's going to be part of the show. He's a McMahon.
Here's the thing with him. It seemed like he did ruffle the feathers of his dad Vince and also Brock Lesnar, who was also very influential, by the way. So he had some grand plans for the Royal Rumble, and obviously it didn't. He was in the match. We know that. But obviously how things were handled backstage, which we may never really know, obviously it ticked them off where they put out a release that said Shane's not there. I mean, could it be a work? Sure. I mean, anything could be possible.
WWE, I don't think ever put out a release that said Shane is no longer with the company.
Yeah, I thought they did. I could have swore they did.
Because I know a lot of other people did.
It wrong, but that's what I mean. Of course, I'm skimming through the internet, but you never know because the internet's
and
so true.
One thing that one story that was out there was Randy Orton was supposed to come out. I think before he did. He ended up coming out at 29, but he was supposed to come out. But then Shane's music hit, and Randy Orton apparently said to Shane McMahon in the back, "Well, I'm not coming out to Here Comes the Money, so I guess you're going out there." And I guess my thing is that music hit so quick. And I rewatched it actually pretty recently. And when that music hit and Shane McMahon came out, it was pretty quick. It wasn't where there was like, oh, is there some debate going on in the back? Is there like the music hit and then Randy Orton's in Gorilla and then Randy Orton has to yell back to Shane like, hey, Shane, you're up. And then Shane has to come out like unprepared. Because I tell you what, they said when that music hit and Shane came out, he was right there. It wasn't one of those his music hit and he was like eating a donut, hanging out back, not thinking it was his time.
It's not like Goldberg when his music hit and then like it takes 5 minutes to get.
Yeah, no. So that whole story about Randy hearing the music and Randy Orton prepared to come out and then having to talk back to Shane like, hey, it's you who's coming out, not me. It seems kind of like, I mean, as soon as like they said, as soon as the here comes the money part, and it was like here comes the money, money talks, here comes the money. Shane was out there.
Well, here's the other thing too.
So that was quick. Like he was ready regardless.
How bad of a look would it be if you sent Randy Orton out to the money?
Well, yeah, obviously they weren't going to do something like that.
I'm just saying that would have been really bad. Like, I mean, WWE's done some really bad stuff, I would say, booking-wise and creative all across the board. But that would be really bad.
I mean, CM Punk did come out to Jeff Hardy's music one time as well as dressed up by Jeff Hardy. And they've done things like that where Triple H, I think, came out as Goldust. That was also another Attitude Era gimmick.
I mean, shoot. I mean, I think I think back in the day, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H came out as Vince and Shane, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, you say back in the day. It's crazy that it is back in the day, which makes the Attitude Era back in the day.
Yeah, even further back.
I will say one thing about AEW Dynamite, kind of unrelated to the show. This week they were at the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, and I have to say, I've got a little soft spot for Atlantic City. I don't know what it is. I like that place a little bit, but it's kind of dirty, and it's definitely had its heyday. And I just think that more wrestling shows need to take place from that arena, from Atlantic City. It's just got to, obviously hosting WrestleMania 4 and 5. But I feel like WWE should put a pay-per-view on there. I'm not saying WrestleMania again or even SummerSlam to that nature.
So is there a cigar bar close by?
I don't think there is. And, Atlantic City's casinos in general have been cutting down that you can't smoke in them like you used to. That's a big negative in my eyes because that was part of the love of going to places like Las Vegas.
Yeah, you could sit in the casino.
I could just walk in and out of everywhere in Las Vegas with a cigar rolling, suit on, just balling all day, every day.
Balling, I love it.
Or looking like I'm balling, at least. That's the gimmick. Looking like I'm balling.
I love it.
But no, I mean, Atlantic City is definitely, it's got its negativity. It's been going on the down slope. They've tried to revitalize it, a little bit here and there. But I will say, I think a good big wrestling show coming to town, or just events in general. They used to have a lot of money fights from that Boardwalk Hall. Tyson fought there all the time. I just think that's a venue that, regardless of if it revitalizes the city or not, it's going to get a good crowd. It's a crowd favorite kind of place, and maybe it could help revitalize things in general. So WWE, more Raws, more Smackdowns. maybe a pay-per-view, a Money in the Bank or something, because I feel like that's a good place to spend a weekend. I'd like to see more venues. I remember a lot of people were pretty excited that AEW was going to be there last night. Like I said, it's not one of those places that can bring in the WrestleManias anymore. Just doesn't have that luster, and more importantly, WWE doesn't even run buildings like that for WrestleMania anymore. No, but I think it's a cool old timey building.
Well, if they could do the Hammerstein, why can't they do this one?
Well, I mean, if they can do it for ECW ish, but
just saying. I mean, it's. I do like.
It's like a 15,000 seat arena.
Yeah, I think for what it is, it's not a bad facility. I mean,
and it's cool. It's right next to all the casinos and tied to the casinos. So it's just kind of, and it's just kind of got like a cool kind of, because it's tied to those old WrestleManias and stuff like that.
So the allure.
Yeah, it's not the generic arenas that you're used to. It's got a little Atlantic City. Just it's not a big city, but it's more known than it is its size. It's probably, a small city in comparison to population.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But it's one of those cities that's a little known when it comes to size. Memphis is one of those. I forgot to mention, when I was there last week, I got to pregame, not necessarily in St. Louis. I was in Memphis the day before. But if you are ever in Memphis, and I'll say this to you as well, anybody's ever met you got to go to Jerry Lawler's bar. That is a cool spot to go to. I've been there twice now. I made sure this time around I made a point to go there. But it is a cool spot right on Beale Street. He's got live music every night. How's
the food?
I haven't had. I had like a cheese plate. Like, this is the first time I ever went there. That was pretty decent. So I haven't had any of the barbecue. He does serve barbecue.
That's my kind of place.
But either way, it's just a cool bar. Because here's the thing: in this world we live in, wrestling is not treated like a lot of the other sports. So there's not like wrestling bars. There's not bars you go in and they have wrestling posters on the wall and signed pictures of wrestlers.
Yeah, it's not like the NFL.
Yeah, so it's not like that. So it's cool to have something like that in a very world famous street that has all sorts of bars. The Coyote
Beale Street's a very famous street.
Yes. So if you're ever in Memphis, you're ever going to check out Beale Street, which you should anyways, go hop in Jerry Lawler's bar.
Tennessee, that's a great spot.
Get yourself a good, they served the drinks in like these little plastic cups that had Jerry Lawler's face on them. And because they were just all the cups they served all drinks in, I got to stack up a few, and take them home, pour the drinks out. Because you can drink on the street there. So even the drinks that you weren't done drinking, you can take it right on the street. You don't even have to take it to like the restroom to pour it out. You can just drink it out on the street, and then
walk and drink.
It's a nice souvenir cup you got there.
How was the? How was the place packed? Was it a pretty?
Yeah, I mean, all the places on Beale Street are pretty busy. On a Friday, Saturday night.
King's doing okay in that restaurant.
Memphis is one of those places that still is kind of got that niche wrestling kind of crowd. They have a show every single week. They still have Memphis Championship Wrestling, and it's on local television every Saturday night. Yep. I saw a billboard for it, the Memphis Championship Wrestling on this station. So it's not just like a niche little thing. It's something that they advertise on big billboards as you're driving into the city. And the PA guy or the in-game host for the Memphis Grizzlies when I went to their game. I thought I recognized him, and it's because I've seen on YouTube he is like the play-by-play guy for Memphis Championship Wrestling as well.
How cool is that? He does that. He does that on the side with the NBA. That's pretty cool.
Because he was doing a lot of wrestling references in his in-game host the games and all the stuff that they do.
Part of his shtick.
And then I saw him, and then when literally later that day I was driving and I saw a Memphis Championship Wrestling billboard, and he was on it, and he's
That's pretty cool.
one of the commentators. So Memphis is still one of those places that has that, like, they treat wrestling a little better there. They don't treat Jerry Lawler like we treat Muhammad Hassan. Who's he? He's from here. Who's that? He's a principal. Who cares?
No, he is. They treat him like a king down there.
Yeah, they treat him, and they treat wrestling like it's something legit that they're proud to have. Like Jerry Lawler is one of their own. They'll name a street after Jerry Lawler. They're not naming a street after anybody around here. I mean, China's from Rochester, but at the same time,
Beth Phoenix got some love in Elmira.
Yeah, I mean that is true. You say some love.
Yes, some.
Yes.
Some love. Yes.
So as we move on, one final thing we'll talk about this week, and it's not been made official yet, but we always talk about, we want The Undertaker. We talk about seeing The Undertaker backstage. One place I don't want to see him, at least yet, if this is true, and that is in the WWE Hall of Fame. And the reason I say that, Dallas would be a perfect spot. He's a Texas guy. It seems kind of foregone that he'd be in it. You know how WWE doesn't wait any time. They put you right in when you are available to do it. I mean, they put in Edge now, 10 plus years ago? Edge has been in the WWE Hall of Fame for like a decade and a half now.
Feels like forever.
But the reason I say this is because it seems like that WWE realizing that WrestleMania is going to be 2 nights, and they have all these shows, and hey, was I not saying this many years ago? Oh, WrestleMania should be 2 nights, more wrestling. What's there to not like? Because WrestleMania has always been 2 nights. WrestleMania has been very many nights for many years. It just hasn't been the last couple of years thanks to COVID, but WrestleMania weekend is many nights. It's many wrestling shows already. All these people are like, oh, now you get WrestleMania on Saturday and WrestleMania on Sunday. I've been getting WrestleMania on Saturday. I've been going on Saturday night, the night before WrestleMania. You don't think I was watching wrestling? I was watching NXT TakeOver. I was watching Ring of Honor Supercard. I was watching some good wrestling, probably better than WrestleMania wrestling. You don't think on Friday night, before, I wasn't watching wrestling? So that whole weekend, you're watching wrestling.
Or you're at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, WrestleMania has always been multiple nights, and they're realizing now that WrestleMania itself is 2 nights, and they're bringing back TakeOver, or Stand and Deliver, they're calling it. They're bringing back the Hall of Fame. They're bringing back Smackdown. They're bringing back Raw, all that. They realize, oh, crap, we don't have a lot of time, and people aren't going to stay from Tuesday to Tuesday. That's a lot of time to just take off and to spend in one city. I mean, Dallas is a nice place, but 7 days in one place just to go to wrestling shows.
It'd be different if it was like 4 days.
Yes, I think 4 days is the perfect spot. So they look like, it seems to be, and in all accounts and all reports, that they're going to have Smackdown still, a meaningless Smackdown before 2 nights of WrestleMania, which I'm against. I mean, I guess.
What's the point?
Yeah, what is the point? I don't want to see Roman Reigns wrestling the night before a championship
Why not just do, like, instead of Smackdown, maybe do like a Stand and Deliver?
Or what what I think they should do, the Hall of Fame.
That's not bad.
The Hall of Fame, because it's a non-wrestling
show.
I think it's a better promotion for WrestleMania than SmackDown is, but it seems like they want to put the two together. It seems like they're going to have SmackDown, and then following SmackDown on the Peacock Network for 2 hours after SmackDown, the Hall of Fame ceremony. So for you on the East Coast, 10 to midnight. So essentially a short Hall of Fame, because it's only going to be 2 hours, and normally they're like 3 because they stretch it out. Yeah, I'm not saying they need to be stretched out, but I do like it as its own show. And then a part of SmackDown, so what you're going to guarantee as being a part of SmackDown is you're not going to get the same presentation. You're not going to get not going to get the setup where all the wrestlers are on the floor and nice seats and their suits and ties, because some of them are just going to be done performing. So you're going to get Roman Reigns coming out there sitting in a chair, and where are you going to put these people? Because again, you had it set up as a ceremony.
I know
now it's going to be the SmackDown ring. And
I know why they're doing it. It's they're going to sell the tickets as like a 2 event type of deal.
You're going to get better attendance for SmackDown and better attendance for the Hall of Fame, because it's a two night thing, or 2 double thing, and you're going to probably beat the Ring of Honor show that's running that night because of it.
Well, here's the thing though. Like, me personally, put the Hall of Fame on Thursday, Friday do the Stand and Deliver NXT Takeover, as I like to call it. Then you have your two night WrestleMania, and you got Monday Night Raw. Done.
I think the Hall of Fame should be in replace SmackDown, and the reason I say that, and the reason I said that it's a better promotion.
You don't even need SmackDown.
So
if
you're flipping through, well, you have the time slot. That's the thing. Fox, you already have the time slot on Fox, and they want show on Friday night on Fox. So
then put a takeover on.
Yeah. Or like I said, if you put the Hall of Fame, the reason I say this is a good promotion, because if you're somebody who's not a wrestling fan, you don't understand the magnitude that is WrestleMania. You don't understand how big it is. You just think it's another wrestling show. But if you're flipping through and on Friday night, you see all these wrestlers in more or less a ceremony and not just the regular wrestling that you think, oh, how big is WrestleMania? There's wrestling on right now. What's the difference between tonight and tomorrow? Like, you just see wrestling. You see Roman Reigns in a tag team match. What's the difference between this show and tomorrow night's show? They're all the same. But if you see a ceremony, you see that all these wrestlers, once they get off the plane in Dallas, the ones who were performing at WrestleMania are not going to perform until WrestleMania. For example, once those planes land in Los Angeles for the Super Bowl, you're not seeing Joe Burrow. You're not seeing any of those people throw a pass or take a hit or catch a reception until the game. You'll see them in suits. You'll see them in funwear. You'll see them lounging about town, but you will not see them taking a pass or playing football until then. And with wrestling, I understand it's scripted, but what I liked about WrestleMania in years past is when that plane touched down in WrestleMania City and you saw Roman Reigns and The Miz and all these people, you did not see them in their wrestling gear until they were focused. WrestleMania is 3 days away, 4 days away. I'm going to do some charities and book events and all this other stuff, but you will not see me in a ring in a competitive sense, risking injury, taking bumps until my match at WrestleMania. So, like, I don't like the plane lands in Dallas and The Miz is like, I still got a match or 2-3 more matches.
That's why you do NXT on Friday.
Yeah.
That's why you do NXT, because the NXT superstars are not going to be on, assume you're not going to be on the WrestleMania cards.
I think in a perfect world, if WrestleMania was 2 nights, NXT is just assimilated with WrestleMania. And that's how you make that work.
Yeah, I mean, you have to put it part of the weekend, but you can make it work where...
There's rumors that NXT is just going to be Saturday afternoon. So you got Saturday afternoon, and then you have WrestleMania Night 1, and then WrestleMania Night 2. Again, see, the whole idea of making this, and this is why I hated WrestleMania being 2 nights. People are like, oh, WrestleMania 2 nights, what's wrong with it? Because when I go to Dallas, no offense, I'd like to eat something outside of McDonald's. I like wrestling. I love it. I'm going to Dallas for it. I don't want to go to a wrestling show, go eat something real quick so I can run to the next wrestling show and then be there.
No, you want to go get something that's local, man. Local cuisine.
I want to spend a whole day not watching wrestling. It's fun to have wrestling at night.
Well, yeah, you got to do the touristy
yes, you
stuff.
Like to kind of do that kind of stuff. And with the Hall of Fame,
if you're in Texas, you got to go to a freaking rodeo, man. Like, what are you thinking? Jared, if you got to do it. I want to see Jared.
I've never been to a rodeo,
hat.
but I have a cowboy hat and I plan on wearing one down there. I bought it last time I was in Dallas.
Jared's going to have to make sure. We got to make sure there's proof, so you got to take a picture of it. But I'm serious. If you're in Dallas, they have rodeos at the stockyards.
Fort Worth Stockyards. I have been there. That is where I got my
Same here.
That is where I got my cowboy hat. I imagine I'll be returning. I think that's a cool little spot.
Would, if I'm in Texas, I'm going. That's for me. Like, if I'm in Texas for a 4-day weekend, say a Thursday to Monday kind of deal, I'm wearing a cowboy hat, and I'm gonna go to a rodeo, because that's what you do. And then you go to some nice barbecue joints while you're down there.
I think
SmackDown Tex-Mex.
Replace SmackDown entirely with the Hall of Fame. And then, too, when you make it 2 hours long,
so let me
kind of shorten it up. So we're guaranteed to have short speeches.
I'm going to cut you off, though, real quick. If it was just one of those boring old SmackDowns, I'd rather go to a rodeo.
But again, if it's got the Hall of Fame in it, and I hope
I'll
not.
just watch the Hall of Fame
If you remember
later.
last year, they threw some of the WrestleMania matches into SmackDown. Obviously, I couldn't attend; they wouldn't let me. But they had like the Battle Royal and the Tag Team Championship.
A little ridiculous.
And I imagine they'll probably do the same now because they're trying to get eyeballs on it. They're going to make it a WrestleMania SmackDown. They'll call it WrestleMania size SmackDown WrestleMania edition or whatever. No. But I think pushing the Hall of Fame to later in the night and obviously making it short. I'm not saying I like the long Hall of Fames. I'm not saying it needs to be 4 hours, because some of them have been.
Okay, then, I mean,
but either way, make it its own night. I'll pay the $25 to just go see the Hall of Fame by itself, where all the wrestlers are you get to really prime for WrestleMania, because you see The Miz, you see Roman, you see Brock, you see all these guys just like dressed up, showing the importance that is WrestleMania, that it's a nice red carpet event before the wrestling show.
There's one thing I got to hit on before we sign off here. Ronda Rousey had a talking to by WWE. I don't know if you heard that. Why? Like, what's the point? Why do you have to do that to Ronda? Like,
I did see that her talking a couple weeks ago seemed like it needed a little more polish. But
they said that they want her to be a babyface, and the way she was talking was more like a heel. So
I think Ronda Rousey should just do whatever she wants to do, because last I saw, she's got more leverage than WWE likes to admit. because they
need to be careful with that talk they gave her, because Ronda could say, "Yeah, I'm good. I'll see you guys later."
Yeah, you can't talk to people who have nothing to lose. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, Ronda Rousey doesn't need the WWE. WWE needs Ronda Rousey.
Exactly. For Brandon, I'm Jared. This has been another edition of the Heel of Face podcast, and we will talk to you next week.